And the second half of your agenda, under Rec, Parks, and Culture Services, we've got an Allen Cup request. And Guy will be walking us through that item.
Thank you. So this time around, Council was asked to consider a request for in-kind support from the Macomb Generals. As you may be aware, the Generals were recently awarded the 2019 Allen Cup, which is sure to highlight our fine city on the national stage once again. This event is expected to provide a boost to the local economy, especially the hospitality and tourism-related businesses. This event will actually require the ice to remain for an additional 2 weeks. It actually says 1 week in the memo, but it's actually an additional 2 weeks and will not cause disruption for other users. As part of the request, they're looking for a fee reduction from the quoted $27,000 that we've provided to them down to $20,000. In exchange, the city would receive a gold level sponsorship event package valued at $4,000. We should note that this $20,000 is new revenue for the facility, as it normally does not remain open that long into April. Additionally, they are looking for some paint. They'd like to touch up the spectator seating in the colors to complement both the Generals and minor hockey brands. The Generals are offering to provide the labor if the city could cover the supply of paint costs. The financial implications are $6,500 for the 2018 budget, and we have actually proposed how we'd cover that within. And there will be a $7,000 rate reduction, which would be designated as a sponsorship expense during the upcoming 2019 budget deliberations. Finally, I'd like to mention that support for events is in line with Council's strategic plan for building on existing partnerships to attract events. Thanks. The administration is recommending that Council approve the 2019 Allen Cup Committee requests. That open for questions.
Thank you, Guy. Certainly not opposed to this. Paul, I just wanted some clarification. You suggested that the calculated fees are $27,000, which I think is pretty safe to say is substantially more than a conventional user. Is this already some kind of a deal, considering the volume and the extent of this, or is this, what is this? What are we comparing here?
From my understanding, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was the fees covering the cost for the arena, the curling rink, and of course this is a week-long event. It's not a weekend, right? So we're talking about 7 days. So yeah, there's no discount at this point. That is the full cost.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jacobson?
Just a quick question. Do we need to bring on additional staff for the week-long event to handle whatever's going on?
According to the bid proposal, I think they'll be handling the volunteer staff, so I don't think there'll be additional staff required on our side of things. That being said, the volume of the games going through the facility, I would think that maybe we're working around the clock, but I don't think we're going to need additional staff.
And as a follow-up, so just to be clear, this additional $20,000, that's as you said, that's sort of money that wasn't normally the facility isn't booked out at that time of year regardless.
Correct, yes, it's open 2 weeks later into the year with this event. So yeah, this is not normally a time the facility is booked or open.
And the reason I'm asking about the extra staff, so like regardless of whether it was 27, 20, or 10,000, this would essentially be extra revenue that wasn't budgeted for essentially. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Well, because along the same vein, though, I was wondering, staff wouldn't normally work during that time, so there would be added expenses. So it's not a clear $20,000 revenue.
So it's a blend of all those things. Whenever we rent out the facility, we have staff on payroll that work in the facility, and they don't not work when the facility's not rented out. There's always work for them to be doing. Back to Councillor Jacobson's question, you may see a fluctuation in casual hours because of the length throughout the day and the length over the week. So we may be accessing more casual hours during that time.
So I think that I would just add that this is a national event, and I don't think that this is an unreasonable request, in my opinion. What everybody's thought on that is, but I think that it's very reasonable, so. Did I see light on over here? Councillor Connick?
No, I would agree with your assessment there, Mayor Creasy, and I'm prepared to make that motion that council approve the 2019 Allen Cup committee requests.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I do echo the idea that, you know, that first request does seem quite reasonable. Of course, there will probably be some minor expenses, just keeping the ice in longer, I'm sure costs extra money, but it would be relatively, you know, minor in the grand scheme of things. So I'm prepared to support their request to have that $7,000, I forget what they call it in here, but I do want to make sure that we talk about the paint and supplies, though, because that is the kind of the other half of the requests as the motion is made. I have a few questions centered around that, if that's okay. So the proposal here, from what I understand, is that the city would buy the paint and that volunteers would put it on. So just backing up from that, when was the last done, the painting that they would be suggesting they want to do? When was it last done?
So, just for a couple items of clarification here, I think that the painting that they're wanting to do this time is an ongoing maintenance item. However, I think it will be somewhat different this year because I'm under the impression that they want to paint it with General's colors, which may change somewhat from what they are now. Is that a reasonable assessment?
That is reasonable. Just to your question, Councillor Hibbs, I think we have about $1,700, don't quote me, $1,700 in the budget for paint. And so the bleachers are painted and maintained each year as they're required based on wear and tear. But this particular project is a wholesale repaint of the facility to change out the colors. And so that puts the cost of the paint up between $5,000 and $6,000. And then the Lacombe Generals will provide the volunteers to actually paint, to do the actual work.
Councillor Hibbs?
So just to follow up on that, then what exactly is being painted? Is it just the bleachers and the railings, or are we talking larger than that?
I'm going to guess it's the bleachers. I think it's changing out the current red, yellow, and blue to mimic the Lacombe Generals colors, and also minor Lacombe minor hockey colors. So I would anticipate it would be the bleacher stands, which could include the railings and the seats.
Just from a implementation point of view here, it strikes me as being a little unusual that volunteers would be entrusted with this type of activity in the public space. Or is the manager of the facility comfortable with the public at large painting the facility? I'm not suggesting that they're incompetent. I just, the possibility for incurring a lot of other costs has to be considered at least.
So Calvin has been part of these discussions, and he does support this proposal, and he does feel that we can handle it. Of course, our facility staff will be on hand with those guiding hands and making sure things are done appropriately. And we are ensuring the quality of the paint is paint that is suitable for those surfaces and those uses and those kinds of things.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra? I'm sorry. No. You go ahead, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I got distracted a little bit about, I know there's a motion on the floor, but it's part of this all, by the proposal and that one gentleman pledged supports to cover the shortfall of this. Is that typical that we got to see all of his documentation in there?
Yeah, it was to inform council as to the level of detail that went into that proposal, and what to expect when the event arrives. That level of detail perhaps could have been left out, yes.
Councillor Ross?
I am foreseeing a scrutinizing call pertaining to the history of the past of the rockets being the red and the blue, but that's going to be substituted with the General's colors, as I can be concerned of people that have a history with past hockey with Lacombe that we're changing out and maybe disrespecting the history of Lacombe Merchants, Lacombe Rockets, and so forth. I foresee that question coming about 9 o'clock Sunday morning, probably.
Certainly an item for councillors to consider. As was stated earlier, this is an ongoing maintenance item. I don't know that it's annually or biannually, so it's not like it has to be any particular color forever, and it can be changed back in time, but it's certainly a consideration for sure. And Guy, you have something to add?
I was just going to state that it is a national event that's going to provide Lacombe with some exposure, and we have made sure that we have spoken to the user groups. You've heard back from Ringette and Minor Hockey, and they're both supportive at this point, so it's difficult to make everyone happy.
Absolutely.
Councillor Hibbs?
Just one question. It seems to me that it references that it would be the colors of the Generals, but also of Minor Hockey, but I'm missing the connection in colors there because as far as I know, the jerseys are quite different. So can you specify to me exactly what colors we're talking about?
I'm not really privy to those conversations, but I will tell you that I believe that there's a common blue, I think, if I understand correctly. And so the blue was sort of the shared color, if you will.
I don't think we have that information where we could answer that question for you right now, Councillor Hibbs. But I do want to make a comment, and that is that every time we do anything in one of our facilities, we rely on the managers and the user groups who all work together very nicely year after year after year after year, and we host hundreds of thousands of people doing a lot of different things. And so I agree, you know, there's probably some conversations that are going to happen, and there could be some people that will have some concerns, but my experience is that those are best worked out by the people who use the facilities, and things do reach consensus and progress is made and things do change. So I'm reluctant for myself or Guy to be talking to any great detail, because these are discussions that have been going on between the facility managers and staff and the user groups.
Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you. Just for a follow-up then, I was just asking because it was mentioned in here, but I was confused by that point. It's really not that big of a deal. I guess what I want to make is the point. I do agree with the first part about the 20,000 versus the 27,000. On this part, I'm not quite as sure on it. I'm not really sure why it needs to be painted wholesale. Ideally, you're not going to see any of the bleachers during the events. They're all going to be covered. So it just seems to me that we're spending some money on something that's really not necessary. I'd rather have that accessible for something maybe around this event that would be, you know, sort of more important, if you want to call it that. I mean, I do appreciate that the committee has that right to have that request, and maybe they feel that that's really important. I'm not so convinced, so I would actually speak against the second half of that. Not to say that I won't vote in favor of the recommendation, because it's both together, but yeah, I'm not sure that that's maybe the best use of money. I think I'd rather save those unused funds for something else, and then just stick to the usual paint budget.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
I echo, actually, which is, can we split the motion, or is it all one?
The motion as it sits right now was made by Councillor Connick, and it suggested that the rate for the facility rental will be reduced from $27,000 to $20,000. And I believe that's where it ended.
No, sir, that is not correct. My motion is what it reads there. The council approved the 2019 Allen Cup Committee request. And no, I will not amend it. It's just paint, people. It's not the Hilda Island.
Thank you for that correction, appreciate it. So everybody's fully understands what the motion is. Councillor Gullickson?
I also agree that it's just paint. I'm not sure I agree with the colors. I'm not a fan of those colors. And I know some of the comments when we did the provincial curling championships were that our facility was the best that they'd televised in the last 10 years because of the red seats and so on. They'd all flowed together. But being that this is a national event and those are the colors of our team, I think it would be a great opportunity to make that change. And it doesn't mean it has to stay forever. The colors, I think for this year should be that. They're hosting the Allen Cup in Lacombe, which is I think is a huge bonus for our community. And I'm thankful that it's here and not in Red Deer like it was last time they hosted. And I think we should give them all the help we possibly can, and I think this would be one way to do that, to say thank you for bringing that forward.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor. It just went blank. And motion reads that council approve the 2019 Allen Cup Committee requests. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? And no, none opposed. Thank you for that. Now we'll move to the first page to unfinished business. Under Transportation Services, the Bolt Transit Service Level Review. And you might just as well stay right where you're at. Yeah, I assume that you're presenting this item. Thank you.
Alrighty. So this evening, council will receive additional information regarding Bolt Transit requested during recent deliberations at its May committee meeting. Council is also asked to consider the Berman UPass proposal. So I'm going to skip past the background and we'll just jump down to the items that council requested follow-up on. We'll start with the termination costs. So according to the agreement, any party can terminate the agreement with 1 year's notice. There's no other additional financial cost. There's also reimbursement for the original bus purchase and annual fleet replacement costs. So our portion of those monies come to approximately $136,000 at the end of this calendar year. I'm going to move down to other facility use numbers. And unfortunately, these numbers are not collected in a manner that really provides themselves to beneficial comparison. The three facilities listed track bookings, and in the case of the pool, lessons and pass sales, rather than individual attendees. So I think it's a safe assumption to say that there are thousands of people that go through those facilities, as opposed to hundreds that use Bolt. Under alternative models, we'll look at the private operator. The suggestion would be that this would involve the cancellation of Bolt and the establishment of a partnership with cabs or rideshare programs. In this circumstance, you'd be looking at a transit fee being paid, a cab fare generated for the travel, and then the difference is what is charged back to the municipality. We actually referenced Innisfil. I don't know if anybody took the time to take a look at that, but that's a community of around 36,000 people. They have partnered with Uber, and using their information, we can estimate that we would probably have around 24,000 trips per year, and using their subsidy of $5.62, That gives us an annual subsidy in the order of around $135,000. What we should note on this program is they've experienced strong growth. And so on one side, that's extremely positive. However, with that growth, the subsidy climbs. So the town has actually been struggling with their budget. They had budgeted $100,000 for the first 6 to 9 months of operation, but exceeded that number quite quickly. So to summarize pros for this service, there's no additional infrastructure cost. It's a cost-effective option up front. A high level of service is provided, and there's potential to offer local employment. On the con side of it, there is less control over customer service when we contract things out. Requires greater coordination on behalf of the municipality. Again, as the ridership grows, so does the cost. There may not be enough capacity to handle the demand locally, and of course there's the loss of regional transportation. So that is the private operator alternative model. I've got the small bus model. Again, this would involve the cancellation of Bolt service and replacement with smaller buses focused on local travel. This option requires a capital investment of the order of about $100,000 per bus. And we're estimating that we'd likely need 3, but that depends on how many operational hours we would have. As a cost estimate, we come in at about $265,000. But again, if we required 2 buses during peak times, the operational hours would increase. That was assuming a 12-hour window from 7 to 7. And so if it did increase, obviously we'd see the corresponding cost increase. Pros in this circumstance is obviously greater connectivity within Lacombe. The frequency we could increase substantially, and public perception of the service would improve because you're using smaller buses and they appear to be fuller. On the con side of things, again, a little bit more administrative responsibility and operational role. It is trending higher on the cost side of things, and there is, again, that loss of regional service. Finally, there's the modified regional transit service option with a dedicated local service, effectively kind of a hybrid option. By lessening the amount of stops within Lacombe, we could reduce the trip time by about 20 minutes. If we use the rideshare program to work into the calculation and deleted Saturday service, this cost would come in at about $291,000. Pros, again, it improves connectivity within the community, as well as access to higher demand Red Deer locations. So that problem that we were running into in the mornings where we couldn't get into RDC, shorten the travel time down, we can get the students there earlier. This would be a better integrated system and would likely improve usability. On the con side of things, again, greater administrative involvement, some additional capital costs would be involved, and let's use the rideshare, and heightened operating cost. A subsidy per ride when we compared it to other municipal services. So we didn't compare everybody on the list, we just used the guys who offered intermunicipal services as we did. You may ask how we calculated our number. What we did is we took the 2016 ridership of 20,149, multiplied it by 70%. And we got about 14,000 riders, 14,000 plus. This resulted, we took the subsidy from 224 and worked it, or divided that by the 14,000 and got 1594 per ride. And so that's in one direction, that's not a round trip. If we were to look at the Berman option and work the proposal into it and assume a 10% increase, we'd see ridership grow to 15,005. Of course, that subsidy drops to about 177,000, and the cost per ride drops to about 1152. So that's a quick summary on the alternatives Council asked us to report back on. We included some outstanding items. So again, the Berman proposal is time sensitive, as they need to determine their fees for the upcoming year. The town of Blackfalds and Red Deer are in agreement that they want to move forward with a governance body that could provide some input into ways to grow the service, grow the ridership, improve cost recovery, and establish key performance indicators for the 3 municipalities. We would be remiss if we didn't mention that the Regional Transit Initiative aligns well with Council's strategic priorities for maintaining relationships with citizens and regional partners, as well as developing strong connections with Burman University. So there are some opportunities there. Other considerations. So Red Deer Transit is exploring rapid transit service along Gates. I don't know if I communicated it well enough in the document, but essentially it's kind of what we're thinking about doing within Macomb as one of the alternatives, where they'd set up a north and a south node, and rather than traveling all the way through Red Deer, you'd hit that north node. We could actually drive the Bolt bus into that, transfer onto that bus, and would make limited stops on the way downtown. So we wouldn't be traveling all the way down to Sorensen. We'd only have to travel to the north node, and that would effectively shorten up that trip by about 15 minutes. That's pretty common in bigger US centers, and in fact I think it's happening in Calgary as well.
Guy, I'm just going to interject
Sure.
so I understand. So we're suggesting that if in fact Red Deer does go through with the north node, that the Bolt stopping at the north node and the riders getting off onto an alternate bus and then proceeding downtown is a faster option than the Bolt bus not stopping there and going to Sorensen?
I think they're talking about increasing the frequency, so I don't think the wait would be very long. It would shorten the ride up for us on the cost side of things, is what I'm suggesting at this point.
Okay, I think it was going to shorten up the ride for the users. I think that just doesn't add. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, not for the users.
Okay.
But I think the idea is that you could actually travel on beyond points beyond Sorensen as well too, so it would actually get you to some other locations within Red Deer in a short time too.
Thank you.
And the last note we wanted to make was that the city is currently involved in intermunicipal collaboration framework discussions over the next 2 years. And this time period aligns well with the 3-year commitment that Burman University is looking for, along with the 1-year notice period that we could provide at some point. So the rationale is that this time could be used to establish a governance body, review opportunities for improvements, and track impacts, and still provide council the opportunity to evaluate the service within your term. So the administration is recommending the acceptance of the Burman proposal, as well as the establishment of a governance body to establish and investigate alternative models. And with that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Guy. Councillor Jacobson?
Thanks, Guy. I had a couple of questions on the private operator model, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So when you're determining your subsidy there, so it says same regular local fares apply and any additional costs of that municipality. So you're talking about like regular cab fares, or the same regular fares they pay for the bus now, or?
Sorry, it would be the transit fares, yeah. So locally, that's a $2 fare. Whatever the cab fare would be on top of that, let's say $10. The roll-up is $8. And so the charge back to the municipality would be $8.
So, just to understand, so that so if they want to take this cab to Red Deer, that's budgeted at $10?
No, yeah. So again, I think that's why our focus is probably more on a local market at this point. If we wanted to consider it regionally, I think it would be cost prohibitive. I think it would have to be limited to Lacombe.
Okay, so that's okay. So this is purely for a local.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, well, that's good.
Councillor Ross?
So in one of the options of small bus model, why would we have to start with 3 buses? Could we not start with 1 and obviously increase the demand of the number of buses versus relative to the demand of the ridership? Like, it's just, I guess it's kind of jumping in farther than what you initially be. That's just that's a right off the start. Because, for example, like if we obviously we'd be going direct, those would be Lacombe service. If you want to have stops on the southeast side, going direct to hypothetically the hospital, college, and downtown bus terminal. Like as the need grows, and then you obviously increase the number of buses. Like you're saying, 3 buses would have to start. So that cost of 265.2 could be significantly lower if you started out with 1 rather than 3.
Sorry, just to comment on that. So it's always good operationally to have a backup bus. So that is strictly why we'd offer 1 of those buses. You could operate with 1 if you wanted to try to operate that way. The 2 buses would be required during peak times if you needed to be in different locations at that same time. So there was a suggestion around the table that perhaps we'd want to work with schools. To manage the schools, we would definitely need to have 2 buses, especially if we're talking about smaller buses.
Councillor Ross, did you have follow-up question?
Continue. My apologies if somebody else wanted to skip in. So Volt's been existed for 4 years, is that correct?
That's correct. So
I would assume with our administration and staff that if there was options to change the schedules, that would have already been done, so to try to increase efficiency and so forth. So the Red Deer Transit system doesn't start till 6:30, is that correct? So that you can't meet different schedules to try to have the service be taken advantage by more people, because we obviously can't. By the time it goes through the travel time duration through Blackfoot, Lacombe, back to Red Deer, there's limited options for changing time schedules. Is that true?
Well, I think one of the alternatives does deal with that. If you did actually get rid of multiple stops within Lacombe, you could shorten up the trip and effectively get back to Red Deer faster. One of the other options that could be considered is something called deadheading, which would be rather than routing the bus down to Sorensen and heading all the way back out to Lacombe, you could just send it out of the bus terminal straight out here. Red Deer Transit was hesitant to do that when we had talked to them about that option, but certainly it is an option, and again, that could shorten up the trip as well, and that has not been worked into any of the calculations at this point. So there is some options.
Thank you for that. I doubt I'm substantially different than anybody else here in that received a fair bit of feedback on this particular issue. And for me, I struggle with the idea of the regional service being the responsibility of the taxpayer to send people out of our community. I don't think it's been any secret since prior to the election whatnot that I have struggled with this, as it was when I was a councillor alongside Councillor Connick. In my opinion, I think that we're trying to address a problem that does not exist to a very large degree, at a substantial cost to our community. I'm not saying that it doesn't help anybody, but a lot of these measures that we're trying to come up with to try and address times and weights and all the rest of it, I don't think that we have the financial capacity to offer a service that gives people the type of taxi type service coming from a regional bus service. And beyond that, I find it difficult to appreciate the fact that we necessarily owe it to our citizens to send them to a different community for products and services or employment, to choose one over another. Why not Ponoka, why not Clive, why not Bentley? I really struggle with it. So that's where I'm coming from. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I think council really has a decision here to decide if they value, I think the key question here is regional transportation, and I would definitely speak in favor of at least maintaining that service right now. I do like the proposal that's brought by administration. I do want to see us form that governance committee. I really feel that at this time eliminating that service is immensely premature. Councillor Ross did make the comment that he assumed that that administration had been looking at this. I'm not sure that they actually have. I think that that's what this governance structure is needed to do. At the start of this, 20% cost recovery was set as a target. That has been met and maintained for the number of years, from my understanding, that this has been running for. And so I would ask that perhaps council give direction on, let's see improvement on that and find ways to improve on that. So I really feel that at this point, at this specific moment in time, if we were to say that we're going to give up the service, that's giving up before we've had a chance to make it better. I've had significant feedback from the community, and overwhelmingly it's been in favor of keeping the service. And so I definitely want to put that out there that, while there has been definitely some people with some very good points speaking against, definitely the vast majority reaching out to me at least has been in favor. And these aren't necessarily all users, they're just people that support the service and think that it really brings value, and that if we were to eliminate it, that's a step backwards. Also, another thing is this would be a significant service change in our community if we were to eliminate this service, and we're doing that with virtually no consultation. And I also think that that would be inappropriate. So if we're going to make a large decision like that, I think we seriously need to do some consultation. Municipalities offer these types of services for a reason. They're not money makers. This is what municipalities do for the common good, and I think something like regional transportation definitely falls within that. It's a step forward. This is a modern approach to serving our community, and I think that that's the brand that Lacombe needs to be. I think it's also really important that we understand who's riding this service. I think there's a lot of sort of stereotypes on that everybody's taking it just to leave the community, or even why they're taking the bus at all. And I did take a ride on the Bolt bus there and back, and had an opportunity to speak to those people that were on the bus. And you have people going to Red Deer for things like school, but you also have them going to Red Deer for things like medical appointments, things that they can't do here in this community, and it gives them the independence to do that. There was one lady that got on in Black Falls that she chooses to come to Lacombe for her services because she can do what she needs to do. It's a smaller community. She likes coming to Lacombe because we're friendly and she can get what she needs to do. And that could be the doctor's appointment, that could be the hospital, it could be all those things. So I think it's important to understand who's taking the bus. There was some information out there that we're subsidizing 30 people or something in the community that are the ones that are taking the bus over and over again. Again, from my talking to people, that is just inherently false. Like, there are many, many people that some take it on a regular basis, and some are just very intermittently. They're taking it maybe once or twice, in a month, or, so I think that's very important to understand that. So we need to look at this with a long-term view. Right now, there's definitely, some outlay of taxpayer dollars going into this, but we have an opportunity here to grow something that will benefit our community, that will, I think, make Lacombe a lot more attractive. And so I really am encouraging my fellow colleagues on council here to really think about that. When you're making this decision, that cut your nose off to spite your face kind of conversation. So I would definitely speak in favor of the governance model. I definitely would speak in favor of the Bourbon proposal. I'd like to see where that gets us. I think we could do a lot to improve this service and make it really work well for users. I'm interested in some of the comments or some of the proposals that were already brought forward. I know we can even do it better than that even. So I would definitely encourage you not to make a hasty decision at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbs. I appreciate your viewpoint as always, especially when it's a passionate one like this. Just a couple of points that I would make. To suggest that there has been no public input, I think is very false. The most major public input was the election last October, and that was a significant one. For those of us that ran on this and other items as a significant item, I think the public consultation was fairly clear. So that's one item, and I don't think that anybody would suggest that there are not people who genuinely appreciate this service. Certainly not me. I think that there is. There just comes a point when is the cost benefit justifiable? I don't think anybody ever expected it to be a money maker by any stretch of the imagination, but to expect it to have fluctuated in usage from year to year the way that it has, and not and not seeing some sort of an appreciable rise in usership is very unfortunate. But even if it had, I'm not sure that it would justify itself then. Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. A couple of questions I have. Termination cost and timeline. You said that any party can give that. Hypothetically, we give our notice, but Black Falls can continue for perpetuity if they want, correct?
They would have to establish a new agreement. The agreement would effectively be done.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, I dispute the notion that smaller bus model, like you estimated 100,000 per bus. If I'm not mistaken, the last Connects bus was 70,000, was it not? Yeah, at any rate, I could be. No, it wasn't 120. It was not 120.
The second last one was 125 or something.
The Shaw one might have been, but that was donated.
This one I think was
The one that we.
89.
So I'm a little questioning those numbers. I won't elaborate further on my feelings on the boat. I think I made it pretty clear. My concern with this governance body, as suggested here, is a little open-ended. I mean, if at the end of the day, council wishes to go this route, I don't want it to be another 3-year commitment as is suggested here. You talk about establishing ICS for the next 2 years, and it's then Bourbon can complete their 3-year commitment. I mean, I don't want to spend another $750,000. At the end of the day, nothing's changed. I mean, sure, the numbers will change slightly and so forth. If at the end of the day that this motion goes forward, I'd like to see a finite, like a 1 year. We look at it for 1 year. This governance body has got 1 year. Even the Bourbon proposal, we asked the Bourbon a 3-year commitment. Even if it's just a 1 year commitment from them, just to try it on their end even. I mean, what's the uptake going to be for them, right? But I can't support the idea of a 3-year governance body. Really, it should take us 1 more year to get some hard numbers if we go down this road. For example, the bus drivers have to start ASAP recording who's getting on it. Like, we still speculate as to the numbers, right? We don't have any hard numbers as to how many are actually riding from Macomb, how many from Black Falls, how many from Red Deer. I mean, like I say, if we go down this road, I want to see some hard numbers. Like, I want to see these bus drivers, they're just sitting on their butts. They can easily write a tick for every guy that gets on in Macomb and everyone that gets on in Black Falls and Red Deer, so we get some hard numbers, personally. Again, I'm not going to elaborate further too much. I mean, everyone knows my feelings on this, but if the will of this body is to accept that motion, then I'd like it to be a finite, establishment of a government body for 1 year to further investigate the alternative models presented. And after that 1 year, once we pour over again, we need to discuss it again, because I don't want to see it go on for another 3 and then another $750,000 out the window.
So just out of curiosity, Councillor Connick, does it seem reasonable to you that a larger body is going to come up with alternatives and implement them and make a difference in 1 year? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe they should get one more crack at it. I don't know. For the benefit of this newer council, and maybe. But again, it can't be a 3-year, and that's 3 years we're not. But in 1 year, I think there could be a little bit more hard data that could support or not support this going forward myself. But I can't support the suggestion that we should do governance one for 3 years myself.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I disagree that we don't have service options for citizens within Macomb, because Connex and through FCSS and so forth, they offer some excellent services and options. There's 3 buses that are busy within this community, transporting seniors to medical and so forth. And other citizens have that option. My father had a recent stroke, and the option was through Macomb. My mom does not feel confident driving Red Deer. She had an option to come to Macomb and going Connex buses to Red Deer. So with that communication, there are options for the citizens, even with the existing Connex buses. I agree with Councillor Connick. I don't want to see a continuous $220,000 moving forward. I think, in my opinion, regional collaboration should be making more efficient use of tax dollars, and it's not. You know, I agree also that I don't think it's with our mixed feelings within council of, I don't feel it justifies having Birmingham University for 3 years. I agree, 1 year. I guess with that in mind, in my opinion, I think there has to be a start point to the possibility of dissolving Bolt of that 365-day notice. If there's other options within the community that come up beforehand that, as a council, that agree upon it, that is in a tax efficient option and a smaller scale so that it grows upon the delivery of the service and the participation of users, because I think this service, the way it is structured now, was 15 years too early. I think if there were options of scheduling that it would have been done prior to now. I think we have a competent administration that I think would have elaborated on that. Maybe there was more options, but I think there has to be a start date to the notice of intention of dissolving Bolt, and with that in mind, during that 365 days, if that there was other options in a smaller scale to deliver a service and to prove that it can be viable, but if we keep doing $225,000 a year on that limited amount of level of service, there are other facilities that I think we have to look forward. In 10 years is $2 million, that's a third of a new fire hall. There's other things that I think have a significant priority. So I would like to make a motion that we have a start date to a notice of dissolving Bolt, but still have a communication with our regional partners that there is a possibility of having a lesser service is more viable, but I think the way Bolt is structured now, it is not financially proven, but it's not saying that that a transit system cannot be done at a different scale, but the way it exists now. So I'd like to have a start date of the notice of intent to dissolve Bolt Bus, and to have Birmingham University down to 1 year and not 3. That would also gives the option of, if we so choose to address this at a year date, if we want to rescind our choice if things are proven differently.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This is a very difficult discussion. I don't think we are capturing yet how the Bolt bus contributes to the quality of life in Lacombe. I do not want to minimize the input that I received from citizens, but it was all reduced down to dollars and cents. And I think what the Bolt bus brings to our community can't be measured that simply. And I think I caution this council to make a very rash decision based on dollars and cents. This has been a great opportunity. I really appreciate that people brought the Bolt bus to the front, whether it might be through the election or through the finances. It's given us a great opportunity to review it, and that has been a very good exercise, but we're not in any way completed. That exercise has just started. Birmingham University has offered us a gift in a lot of ways, and we want to work with our university. Black Falls has written a very eloquent letter along with this proposal, and we want to work with Black Falls. But more importantly is, what does Bolt bring to our town and our city? And it brings citizens here who desire to live here, but they need to access services that only Red Deer has, and we can't even begin to believe that we'll bring all those services here. Secondly, we have never addressed what kind of investment has come to town because we have a regional transportation system? There are many communities that are desiring a regional transportation system like ours, because they know that that is something that communities should have. So how did we measure that? Like, has something moved to town here that has brought investment just because the Bolt exists? That's not been, we can't measure it. But the biggest thing is the quality of life piece. Let us not ignore, let's say, the 30 people. Let's just go with that number, that 30 people. Where do they find that quality of life other than in our community? And I just, I caution us to be making a very rash decision on this transportation issue. Thank you, Mayor Creasy, for challenging Councillor Connick. I don't think Councillor Connick meant it in the way that when you give it a year, but we all know what it's like to get rolling here on council. We need more than a year. So let's allow this governance body to act, to respond to input from citizens. Since this came to light, my own colleague, she said when she worked in Red Deer, if the Bolt bus's schedule had been tweaked, she would have absolutely used it because it would have saved her $500 a month. I know she's working there, but she does live here and she does bring her income back to Lacombe. And I think that's valuable.
Thank you. There has been some reference that I think that there has not been proper scheduling or consultation with the public, and I can't help but think that that is significantly incorrect. I don't know if you would have some indication of the hours that you've spent over many years adjusting and tweaking the schedule with the end goal of trying to make it as user-friendly as it can possibly be, but perhaps you could just speak to that.
You know, I think it's a language piece. People are not communicating what their concern is, and ultimately what their concern is that they want to see the frequency increased with the service. They see the value of the service, they want to use the service. It's not there for them to use at this point. So again, that requires investment. There are some questions around, could we tweak the service? I think we wanted to see the ridership grow before we reinvested in the service again, right? But again, that is collectively, I think, what the feedback has been whenever we've talked to the community is they appreciate the service, they want more frequency. And so when people talk about their scheduling issues and they want to tweak the schedule, I don't think it's necessarily issues with the schedule itself, because you're absolutely right, Mayor Creasy. It's one of those things where it's not there for them when they need it. And so they want to see improvements to the service.
And therein lies the difficult quantifiable amount to know where that balance would be. So how much more do we have to invest on an annual basis in supplying the kind of frequency that would benefit the number of riders? If we spend $1 million a year, would we have 5 times as many riders, or would we have 50 times as many riders? I'm not going to speculate, but there becomes a point where, as I said earlier, the expectations for the level of service that are wanted by a portion of our community are not within our financial resources to provide. And I guess therein lies the question where that limit is. So, Councillor Jacobson?
It's interesting to see what topics are going to divide us. So I have not been inundated with communication. I've had a few. And I've had a little bit more time to think about this, perhaps unfettered with the views of others than my fellow councillors. And I frankly find that the weight of the argument for myself tends to fall a lot more towards the mayor's point of view, and that specifically that is it the burden of taxpayers to pay for regional transportation? And I think that's a very powerful argument. However, to me, the business case has not been established yet. And I know I wasn't here for the last 4 years, and I know there already has been lots of work done. But looking at this from a bird's eye point of view, and I'm thinking of, there's going to be a university in Red Deer in the next 2 years. We don't know to what degree. There's going to be students who want to stay around here who don't want to attend a Christian university, but do want to attend university in Central Alberta and want to stay in Macomb. We don't know to what degree that's going to impact it. As potential commercial development happens in Macomb, we don't know to what degree that's going to impact everything. So I guess from my point of view, the reason I say I find the weight of the argument to be more compelling because it's an extraordinarily expensive experiment to maintain. However, I don't feel that it's prudent to throw the baby out with the bathwater at this point, in that I think this proposal of Bourbon University coming in for 3 years, and the reason why I believe they said they wanted 3 years is because they wanted the students who were freshmen now to experience a whole cycle of being at university with this and seeing, that's why they had their 3 years there, and I think that's a very plausible explanation. I do agree that it takes a lot more than a year, I think, to establish a governance body, get their whole thing going, and develop their own key performance indicators, and come back to the various stakeholders, Black Falls, Macomb, and I guess Red Deer, or Red Deer Transit anyway, to see how these are proposals, how we can get better, this is how we're going to measure it, all that. So I think that takes a lot more than a year. I think 3 years is probably really increasing it, to be honest with you. By the time they get established, get a proper board, get that happening, and then measure it for a year, they'll be doing good to get that done in 3 years. But I do genuinely think that if they're established with the clear mandate that there is, from at least one of your stakeholders, there is a lot of pessimism that this is even viable. I think that'll maybe light a fire into them. So I'm still ultimately in agreement that we should move forward with the Bourbon proposal and establish a governance body with this clear mandate. However, I can foresee a very hot potential election issue. But again, like I said, at this point, just because, for me, it's almost because there's been so much invested in this that I'm just unwilling to throw this out without everything being looked at. And I'm still not yet satisfied that the business case has been completely made. And by that I mean I'm still not satisfied that I have all the information in front of me to say that this is completely unviable. So at this point, I am in favor of moving ahead with this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Jacobson. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I agree with Councillor Jacobson. I think there's been a lot of investment here. I wouldn't have voted for Bolt originally with those kind of numbers. I couldn't have. But now that we're into it, I think we need to give it an opportunity to, well, it'll never totally succeed, but get better. I think that if we're talking 30 riders, like in some cases that ride it on a regular basis, it's almost insanity to throw that much money at them. I agree with that too. But I do believe we need to give it a chance. One of the discussions I had with the people from Bourbon was that they talked about, they were looking for local ridership mostly to come downtown and different things. And I can't see where we're going to need that. We should really look at our own community first and try and build that. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a partnership with Wolf Creek School Division and the Catholic school. I watched a school bus come down our street with one child on it the other day, a full-size school bus. It seemed ridiculous. And the bus picked up 6 kids and headed to the school total. Because I had to follow it. And I thought, oh, this is nuts. Why is there a full-size school bus? Why isn't there a local system that can do that for them? I think there's a way we could tweak it to meet the needs of the students and the people going to the hospital, especially the university in Red Deer. Jonathan has a great point about the university coming. It could be a lot more users there, and we need to meet their timetables. Because my daughter bought a pass and never rode the bus once because she didn't meet any of her time frames. and she bought it for the university. So we need to figure out a way to do that, and whether it has to run its own bus because Red Deer Transit won't do it for us, maybe there's a way we can manage that. And I think if we do that, we'll see the numbers get better. I don't think we will ever see the dollars get lower. Our investment's going to be at least what it is now, if not more. But if we can increase the riders, then I think the public would be more on board as far as Bolt staying. Right now, everybody that has come to me has said get rid of it. They want it out. They think it's a waste of money. And I know that's not all of our community, obviously, but everybody that has talked to me said they want to get rid of it, and I would like to see us still give us a little more of a chance and see if we can work something locally into the system to make it work better.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the offer of Brigham University. I struggle with some of the perceptions here that there is an upside for growth within that community. Is it not the expectation that every student is going to purchase a pass anyway? So I don't think I'm incorrect in suggesting that the only room for growth is down the road, that they pay more and more and more. And unless their student body increases substantially.
I think that's the hope, is that they're hoping that their enrollment will climb over the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Councillor Connor?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a clarification on a couple of points. Councillor Collison, you alluded to a bus with only 7 people. Just, Councillor Hibbs can probably back me on this, but Wolf Creek Transportation and Stark Valley doesn't run a bus unless they have at least 20 kids. So there might be 20 registered riders on that particular day. They might only be 7. So just so they won't run a bus unless they have. Just so I know where you're getting it. They probably only had 7 that day.
Yeah.
But he probably has 20 plus kids on his route. But that given day, he only had, because they won't run a bus. They have to eat thresholds too. So, and while and that's a conversation to have with them. Whether or not they would explore that or not, I don't know. I just one other comment that Councillor Hoekstra has alluded to, quality of life. This speaks to quality of life, and it's not about dollars and cents. Yes and no. I just find it curious that not too long ago we were debating the merits of $6,000 of paint and how that was too much money, yet this is okay. So I struggle with that a little bit too. I think it is very much about dollars and cents, but at any rate, that's the last 2 comments I will make.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I did not speak to the paint. That is needs. Okay, because I think that's important to note that was not something I actually wanted to speak to that I wanted to say. I actually want to agree with Councillor Connick tonight. So anyhow.
Just tonight.
Didn't see a bunch of other lights on, so just wondering if, I'm sorry, the sunshine, it looks like it's off. Councillor Ross.
I think if this would have been presented in a way when Bolt first started, that being it's $220,000 and we have a 1% tax increase for every 135, if the city of Lacombe would have put it out in a survey and said, are you willing to pay a 1.6 or 1.7% tax increase to fund a regional transit system that's unproven on the participation and the ridership? Would have people said yes then? Because that obviously bumped up their taxes rather than starting at a smaller scale and working with the growth as the need increased, instead of going in with the service that we did and the cost and so forth. And my motion was to have a notice of, because there is a year's notice to dissolve Bolt. I'm not saying that there's opportunity within that year to tweak it, but if it's a year later and it's still not tweaked, we've just put out another $220,000 to commit because we have to give a year's notice. I don't want to keep using the taxpayers' money at $220,000 a year and not see change and not see improvement. That's a waste of money. But my motion was to give the intent, the notice that within, because that is the part of the process. I'm not saying that you still can't have the regional, which would make sense that the Birmingham University has a 1-year participation in Bolt, with tweaking with your, or meeting with the regional partners and the other collaborations to try to make the service far better and or improve. But if we don't have a start date, we are committing another $220,000 of taxpayers' money as process. And I don't agree with doing that. So that was the motion. So I think that's fair.
So just as a point of clarification, so there's no confusion, it's actually over $300,000 that we spent. So let's not be confused there. It's over $300,000.
Because we're committed to this.
But there is some recovery on there through advertising and usership fees. So it's, the actual cost is over $300,000. The subsidy rate, or the subsidy level that you're talking about, is more in that $225,000 range. Is that correct, Keith?
Subsidy is $224,000 for 2016. 2017 was $199,000, and is about that number for this year, and is projected to be $177,000 under the permit proposal.
Okay. So, and
Sorry, but the total cost you had was approximately right about $285,000. But with that, it's not just transit fees. Obviously, the operator fees we pay, a portion of the promotional revenue that we make back to Black Falls. We pay for transit snow clearing. We contract that piece out. There's a little bit of advertising that we do in that. So that's not just Red Deer Transit cost at this point.
so, once again, the cost of the service is just over $300,000 and all in.
285. 285 is where we'd be at.
So on the pamphlet that we just mailed out to 5,000 houses in Macomb, it's incorrect?
That included Connects and Bolt.
Thank you for that clarification, that makes better sense. Thank you.
That's a
Just wondering where the discrepancy came in there.
Sorry, yeah.
And so Bolt is about 280 something and in hard expenses, but the subsidy that we're paying is about, I think, 183 or something. And then the balance is the amount of money that we contribute to Connects.
Thank you for that clarification, I appreciate it. Councillor Connick.
Just quickly to Councillor Ross's suggestion, you're suggesting to give notice to terminate. Well, then there's no point in tweaking it, just notice to terminate. To sit there and ask them to try and improve the service in a year when you're telling them we're done in a year doesn't make much sense to me. I'm just to
I
my...
understand. That's about, I guess, if it improves, can you opt out of your...
You give you notice something improves, you can't just then say, well, no,
I understand the suggestion that you're making, but perhaps by giving it a date might accomplish, I think, what you're going for. But somewhere in the future, if the point of your motion is to open the door to some further dialogue with our regional partners, that would be, I guess, a viable solution, and that would give us an opportunity to reconsider. But you can't give notice to terminate something immediately.
Flexible, I guess.
No, I appreciate that. But I don't think that would be reasonable to, we can't terminate it and not terminate it both.
Yes.
But you can't give a date at which time it would be terminated. Just because it's a year waiting from that time doesn't mean it has to be initiated right away. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Councillor Hoekstra?
I just would like some clarification. Is there a motion on the table? Because otherwise I would gladly make the motion that we accept this proposal. So is there a motion on the table or not?
I understand that there is a motion on the table. I'm just not sure of the precise wording.
So if it's helpful, I'll read what I've got here from the past discussion with Councillor Ross. So, I'd like to have a motion, this is Councillor Ross speaking, that we have a start date to a notice of dissolving bolt, but still have communication with the regional partners if there's possibility of advisory service. Subsequent discussion modified that somewhat, so I think what it should read, and Councillor Ross can correct me, is something along the lines of, I'd like to have a motion that we have a start date to a notice of dissolving bolt. And leave it at that.
Was it your intent to have a date associated with the motion?
July 1st.
To give notice to terminate
Yes.
1 year. Or don't give notice July 1st, 1 year.
Mill date of July 1st. That gives you a month to consult with your, as an etiquette and courtesy to your regional partner at Black Falls and Red Deer, and then, does that make sense? Does that etiquette and,
I think
there should be some consultation that of our intent.
I think the way that you have worded it ought to have a date. That's all I'm saying. What you choose to make it is your
Okay,
business.
July 1st.
Okay.
Can you read that?
Can you read that back, Ross, please?
The council will have a start date of July 1st as notice for dissolving bolt transit.
Can't say it over on you, but
So July 1st, 2018, we would serve notice that the service would cease July 1st of 2019.
Yes.
And between 2018 and 2019, efforts would be made to see what changes could be caused, or there'd be no work going on, it would just be done. Okay.
is it your assumption that that's what the month
Yes.
up to that time was for? Okay. Does anybody have any questions with the motion as stated? Or any other input that we'd like to go over?
Suddenly I'm conscious of that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think you see the mic lights now.
It was nice watching this.
Thank you for that. So we're all
Question on this.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I don't really have a question. I think I'm just reiterating what I've kind of already stated, but I definitely speak against that motion. I absolutely do not want us to start down that process. I think that's premature. I've said it already. By saying that you're giving 1 year, it's just, frankly, it's impossible. You're asking something that's just not going to happen. And I really think that we owe it to ratepayers to make the best decision possible, and I don't believe that that motion supports that.
Anyone else? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? And let the record show foreign planes. Thank you for that, everyone. Councillor Hoekstrom?
I would like to move that council accept the Burman University proposal and endorse the establishment of a governance body to further investigate the alternative models presented.
Thank you for that. Any question on that motion? And so then just to refresh my memory, then the Burman University proposal was a 3-year commitment at a set amount each year, correct?
Correct, although I will say that that was, they were providing a 3-year commitment on their side of things. So just a point of clarity on that, there has been no agreement on our side of things to sort of say, maybe there's an exit clause or something on our side of things, right? So they were looking, as Councillor Jacobson has said, to present this to their student body as an opportunity to take somebody from freshman to senior through the entire program. So that's why they were looking for the 3 years.
Thank you. Councillor Lundstrom?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I would be willing to amend my motion to say that council would direct administration to investigate the Burman University proposal further and endorse the establishment of a governance body, meaning that if you wanted to have an exit clause built into it, that we wouldn't necessarily have to commit to the full 3 years.
Okay, I appreciate the amendment, but I don't know if that's necessarily the role of staff to determine that. I think that's up to council. So we might want to. Councillor Gullickson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think 3 years is too long for that, because I think that for us anyway, I think we're going to need to see a lot of improvement. For me, I need to see improvement in the system, and I think we can do that within 2 years if it's going to happen. And we'll see what the ridership is from Burman by then, and then we would have the chance to get out of that or vote at that time to leave Bolt if it doesn't get better. I think this is possibly our one way to make this more viable and easier to take on my part. I don't know, will they accept a 2-year commitment?
That discussion has not been had, so we'd have to run it past them to see if they'd be open to it.
They need to know soon though, because they're going to offer this to their students in the fall, correct?
Correct.
So
But as I said, I think the justification really was around taking their freshman to senior, walking it through this so they can change the culture at the university. So I don't know if it was a requirement from our side of things, it was more a requirement from their side of things.
because if we had 2 years, I guess, of that, and then voted to get rid of Bolt at that point, because it was a failure, then we would be into 3 years anyway. Okay.
So, just so I understand fully, Councillor Gullickson, are you somehow under the impression that the commitment from Burman will change from year to year? I mean, it's a fixed amount of money, more or less.
To be honest, well, I don't think the money is going to be a big thing for us, so much as the ridership. I'm hoping that the students will use this all the time and during the week, and I hope we see an increased ridership, and then the percentage looks a lot better. Because the money is, any of us that think that the money's going to get better as far as the amounts we're putting in, that's the pipe dream. We're still going to have to put a lot of money into a public system. We need to get more users. And even with more users, our investment is going to go up. In a public, transit system, it doesn't even come close to paying for itself. But we need to have the riders to make it worthwhile for us to make that investment. So I don't think there's going to be any more money. There's going to be hopefully more usage.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I do want to reiterate what was already mentioned by Councillor Jacobson, that 3 years is very reasonable. It takes a long time to to make these changes, to set up the governance body, to make the changes, and then actually to monitor them. So I think that without those 3 years, you're actually selling yourself short. You're somewhat setting up for failure because you can't really, you don't really get the chance to show, you know, because there's always a lag time, like, because you can only see the numbers up to a certain point. So I really encourage you to go for the 3 years. I mean, if this turns into the next election, you know, big deal, fabulous, let's do it. You know, I think that would be a great opportunity, but it has to be 3 years because it's just not long enough. Otherwise, anything less than that is, like I said, you're just setting it up for failure.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I'll put this back out to you. In a year from now, we have no growth, same financial responsibility to the city, and we're back to the same discussion, and we want to dissolve it. Then how do you have to deal with that?
Okay, just so we're clear, there is going to be increased cost though, for the extra trip that they want. It's not like this is not going to cost more.
No, it will actually, there's a slight increase actually in cost, I believe, but because we're canceling the Saturday service, it actually brings it in line. So again, there was underutilization on the Sundays, or Saturdays, sorry. So by bringing that in line and adding the frequency in the evenings, that was kind of the trade-off. So there's a small bump, but not a significant increase.
And so we're considering ending the Bolt service completely on Saturday across the board, or just to Berman?
Across the board, that was what the proposal is it's deletion of Saturday service.
For the entire community? Okay, I failed to appreciate that on the proposal. I thought it meant service to Berman. Okay. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I think that as part of this as well, you have to remember that, you know, we're talking about trying to change a culture here, right? So when you've got more riders, even if it is local, you see people waiting for the bus stop. I think that sort of brings to mind other people, maybe that is a good idea, I should be taking that too. Those people are taking it, maybe I should be taking it too. And, you know, we are talking about, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'll come back.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I think as Councillor Hibbs alluded to, the monitoring piece is critical for me. I don't know what that looks like or how that's going to be. Like, I'd like to see how many riders get on and Lacombe. Conversely, I'd like to see how many then get off. Like, I don't know how that piece is critical for me. I don't know, like, I want to see harder numbers how you map that out. And I don't know if there's an app or something, like, you know, just kind of be a way.
The system should actually do it, but for whatever reason, it's been limited to boardings. What you're referring to is a lighting. So boarding is getting on the bus, a lightings is getting off the bus. And for whatever reason, I don't know if there's a technical issue, but they have not been tracking the lightings. So again, this would be something that we could discuss with Red Deer Transit to say this is absolutely imperative for us. We want to know the lightings and we'll get them working on it.
Yeah, please do, because that's a huge gap there. That's a huge problem that I have with this system.
CEO?
Just listening to the discussion and trying to articulate, you know, a direction that we can actually go away and be helpful with. I was wondering if council would consider setting some thresholds. I've heard things about increased riders, increased revenues, and maybe we could establish some timelines. Back to Councillor Ross's point is, how long do you go before you're back to where you feel like you might be already? So I'm wondering if we could set some thresholds to bring back to council that based on reasonability. I mean, we have to talk to some other services and understand what reasonable progress might look like. But I'm wondering if we can come back, or if council's prepared to set those thresholds tonight. You know, increased ridership, increased revenues within this amount of time. And then we revisit it and do a review, I don't know. Because where we're struggling is we haven't been able to do that detailed level of work to come back and say, here is a way that we can have better numbers. You know, which is what we'd like to do.
Right. So, for clarity, the system that tracks the riders, has this been in place for quite some time, or since the inception of Bolt, or what? When did it come on board?
I want to say, was it September 2015? Is that what it was? Or 2016? It's only been in operation for about 2.5 years.
2.5 years?
Yeah.
And in that time, has it ever gathered the information correctly or not to date?
Well, it's gathering the information correctly in terms of riders. It does not tell us the number of people that get off the bus at certain locations.
Okay.
So it's tracking how many people get on the bus. They take their pass, they drop the cash in. It tracks that. It does not tell you where they get off.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a motion by Councillor Hoekstra here, and I'll have Ross read back so we don't get confused.
Councillor Hoekstra's motion was that council would direct administration to investigate the Burnaby University proposal further and endorse the establishment of a governance body.
Everybody's clear on that motion?
Can I just make one comment? I think
Certainly.
because of the time sensitivity, I think a decision would probably have to be brought back to Berman. At this point, to investigate it at this point, I think would be challenging. I don't think we'd get the result that Berman would want at that point.
Could I bring it back to just as stated in the proposal?
Certainly, why don't you go ahead and read it the way you'd like it to read then?
Apologies. That council accept the Berman University proposal and endorse the establishment of a governance body to further investigate the alternative models presented.
Sounds good. So as far as the details of our participation in such a governance body, we would leave that up to a later date then?
Okay.
Just so everybody's on board with the motion. Any additional comment? Councillor Gullickson?
So we have no timeline then for administration that you were looking for? You're looking for a timeline, right? That says we have to meet these goals by this date. This doesn't do that. Can we do another? That's the only problem I have with this, is that there's no date, because this is a hard decision for me. And there's no date for termination.
I'm wondering if administration could come back based on this motion. We could come back and say, here are targets and timelines we think we can meet. Does this meet council's will? In 6 months it's reasonable to have increased ridership, or I'm not sure what those timelines are, but.
I think the governance body would have to meet to
Right, yeah,
decide
we
what
have
those
to come
performance
back with
measures
that
are.
plan.
Councillor Jacobson?
I just want to speak to Councillor Gullickson's point there. I guess in my mind, the issues that you're referring to, which is, the setting of thresholds and dates and all that kind of stuff, to me, that would be dealt with in the formation of the governance body. So when administration comes forward and says, this is how we're going to do this, at that point we can say, this is your task, you got to do this, this, and this, and these are your timelines, and you come back and let us know how it's going to happen, kind of thing. To me, in my mind, that's, because I share your same concern about that, but that's what I would think that would be dealt with.
But the governance body isn't just us. It's Red Deer, Black Falls together. So their timelines are going to be totally different than what our thoughts are. Like the way Black Falls letter reads is that they are very happy with the Bolt system. Well, somewhat. Obviously, we are not.
So that doesn't, but that doesn't prevent us from letting the governance body know, like, this is where we're coming from.
Council.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So, as it's being formed, we're letting them know, because of discussions we've had from administrative information. You know, we're going to be interested in staying on if these thresholds of ridership are met. We're going to be interested in staying on if these things are happening. You guys figure out how you're going to monitor this and bring us the plan to do that, right? And in my mind, that's when that would happen. And
That's exactly
how I would
that's
support
what
this.
I'm looking for too.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
council is setting those dates.
I concur with that, and if there's further language that's necessary to reiterate that point, I think the motion should be amended, but in my mind, it's covered off by just the governance body.
If it's already in there, if it's covered off by that, and that's your feelings, I'm fine with that. That's good.
So just out of curiosity, this governance body, then you're proposing it include others besides those that are paying for the system, i.e. Lacombe and Black Falls?
Well, Red Deer will have to be involved with Red Deer Transit, would they not?
I think they would advise the group as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they would be a voting body, but I would think that you'd want to have some stakeholders. Berman would be an interesting one to have, and then probably the public at large.
Regardless of who it's composed of, I mean, ultimately, council holds the decision to pull the plug in a year's time, right? So it doesn't matter if it's composed of Lacombe, Black Falls, whatever. These are the conditions under which we're willing to consider staying in. You figure out how you're going to monitor it and report back to us and bring us the new ideas, right?
Go ahead.
So I would anticipate that we would return to council.
I would anticipate we would return to council and say, here's an implementation plan that reflects all of the conversation we have heard around the table tonight. And then this council and Black Falls Council would endorse that as a joint project, as a regional partnership. And it would, so it wouldn't, this council would still have the ability to say, this meets our direction or it does not, when we bring back that plan.
Are you sufficiently confused yet? So the motion, the way that it stands now, is the council accept the Berman University proposal and endorse the establishment of a governance body to further investigate the alternative models presented. So this isn't about tweaking the Bolt system, this is about investigating alternative models. Councillor Hibbs?
I would say that's not correct. When it says alternative models, it's not specifying what those alternative models are. So that could be alternative models of offering the service within the service. So I like how it is worded right now. It's sufficiently vague enough that it gives direction without being prescriptive.
So we're not referring to the models in the report, the small bus model and it seemed obvious to me that we were. Obviously for Councillor Hibbs it is not. So what is...
I just
think we need to be clear with the direction is all I'm getting at.
I think the way that it was phrased was that it would include the alternative models that were in the report, but that would not keep anything else from being considered.
I don't think it would preclude any other ideas that come forward in the meantime. It says it includes those models, and if anything else comes up in terms of modifying the system or whatever, I mean, those will all be considered.
Okay, so perhaps we should just take off presented, just investigate all, and make a read, investigate alternative models. Is that a friendly amendment?
Friendly.
And I just think we need to be clear.
But I guess the considerations are in there about improving frequency and connectivity. That is part of this report. That are part of the considerations. So I guess I just assume it's the whole report. That's it.
So Councillor Hoekstr's motion is that council accept the Berlin University proposal and endorse the establishment of a governance body to further investigate alternative models.
So everybody's good like that? I don't see any lights going on. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? Imagine that. Thank you very much. You get that recorded? Pretty good. Thanks, everyone. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe all that, appreciate it, Keith, all that we have left is reports. Kind of jumped around. I don't believe that I missed anything, but if I have, we will bring it up after reports. Councillor Gullickson, would you like to start?
I would.
Okay. All right, on May 6th, I attended Lacombe's meeting. We reviewed the needs of the car show and talked about funding and sponsorship. And it was good discussion on the car show. There's some things that they need and different things down at the LMC that problems were resolved. We also talked about, at that meeting, I didn't put it in there, the shootout and the possibilities of that at a different location. So we're working on that also. May 11th, I attended the Red Deer River Municipal User Group meeting. We talked about protecting our water sources and how the community should work to do that. I thought it was pretty good. It did put emphasis on the water sources. In our areas, probably we're okay. The Red Deer River isn't taxed too hard, but other areas in the province certainly are. So it gave you an idea of the future, maybe 50 years from now, where we'll be and how important that water will be. On the 16th, I attended an MPC meeting. We had one item on the agenda for variance for a side lot setback for a new home, and that was approved. And that's a narrow lot project, which will be interesting to see how that goes forward and how those houses are received in our community. Attended Mayor for a Day with the grade 6 students. This was a really good afternoon. I enjoyed it a lot. The kids were great. The council, I thought, was better than ours. They were quite good. Mayor Creasy did a great job of moderating. It was a lot of fun. Then I had another Lacombe's meeting on May 21st. We talked about the reduced sponsorship, but I think the majority of our sponsors have come in. Maybe a little less money than they've had in the past, and certainly the lack of volunteers, which is a little disturbing to me, and I'm not sure of that solution for that. Budget seems to be okay, but reserve will be smaller than it was in the past. And again, further discussion regarding the location of the shootout. And I attended the library meeting on May 22nd, and we had a review of the Alberta Library Conference, which they all seemed to enjoy, and talked about the final draft of their plan of service. And things are going quite well there. They are looking at possibly the Anna Maria space as a future space for them to use for activities, and people want to sit in there to use the Wi-Fi from the library and so on. So they'll be coming forward to us regarding that. Any questions regarding my report?
Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The shootout, that's been brought up before at the airport. We haven't had much luck in getting them on board.
Still are.
And so that's
I think one of the things they're worried about the runway being damaged, and I think Chris is investigating that regarding other communities that have used the airport, because it's a great facility for that, and You know, we have probably 300-400 people up there watching that. And so it would be an opportunity to showcase that facility also.
Councillor Connick, you had the only question, you might as well go next.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a further comment, they'd probably get on board if we repaved their whole thing, they would love that. My report is there, if any, I'll take any questions today, if any have any.
Seeing none, Councillor Ross, are you ready for your report?
Absolutely. The Committee's meeting, just did all struggling with volunteers, sponsorship. It will come together. It's just my responsibility with the council. We've had to try to kind of involve a couple of people in the community to try to keep that separation of it is a community committee, so we tried to. I had the sole responsibility of that before. And, it is coming together slowly. The business community is absolutely wonderful, but it's addressing the airport is very reluctant to let us use the facility. They have concern over burnouts. Kind of had a very politely political conversation over they want to do runway, but they kind of. Anyways, Argonne Regional Library. The board consists of 56 members. The board has decided to build a new building. It was kind of their RFP, they did not disclose at first. They had ATDF, a small vague matrix score. Their executive council came back to the board and basically said that they chose to build a new building. The Tricon has taken a appraised value of $2 million on the current building, and basically plus their grant of 2.4. So basically Tricon has put forth between Tricon and PRL a budget of $4.4 million to build a new building. I'm not aware of even if they have land secured. So that was a bit of an awkward meeting because I brought forward, I said, so do you have land secured? Then we wanted, myself and a couple of other board members wanted the names disclosed and the information made transparency and public. So anyway, so then the budget discussions, they would like, of course, 3.3%. I brought up that our council has tried to stay within a consumer price index, and I basically said I would not support much more than, or I would support more than 1.6. So other board members were in that same as well. So and they are expanding into the First Nations of the Musquatchees for bounds. So that's created some, I guess, expansion for them as far as their services. So.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Ross? Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. My report is attached. I don't really think I have any comments on it other than to skip down to community feedback number 3, cannabis. I'd just like to really encourage people out there, hello internet, to take in that Cannabis World Cafe that's tomorrow evening from 6:30 till 9 at the LMC. I think that'll be a fantastic opportunity for people to learn more about, you know, what cannabis is, what that's going to look like in our community, take maybe some of that, the unknown and scary out of it, because it really shouldn't be. So yeah, that's all that I have for comments, so I'll definitely take some questions if anybody has them.
Good off easy. Councillor Hoekstra.
Okay. Sorry. So there you, I too enjoyed the Mayor for the Day on May 17th. I was really struck by the way these young kids could process the information as it was presented in front of them. And the one gal who said, we just decided we love this small city, so why would we be endorsing all these big businesses coming here? Like, it was just really neat to see their brains working. I'm not sure that my brain's always working quite that sharply here, but anyhow. I've had a couple of meetings that I couldn't really give you a true report on, but one of them is being the carts. I wrote a little bit there about the Mintlaw Bridge. I didn't really understand the significance of this bridge. It's a trestle bridge that I've never seen between Red Deer and Sylvan. It is causing a big discussion at the regional trail system. We are a member of that regional trail society, and they are really desiring to develop this trail between Red Deer and Sylvan over this bridge. And I think at some point we will be called upon to be providing some kind of support as a municipal partner. What that will look like, I'm not sure. At this point, I'm just hoping I can go on the field trip to see the bridge. Has anybody seen it? It's apparently beautiful. Anyhow, cool. It could cost over $12 million, by the way, to build that trail. Today I had the joy of participating in a strategic planning session, my third in 3 months, for different organizations. So everybody's smiling, or Grant certainly is. Anyhow, this was a particularly interesting one though. Lacombe Foundation it had to develop a business plan much more quickly than they typically had to. They usually have a deadline of September 30th to submit their plan. They had to submit it by June 30th. So we had some quick discussion points today. Our CAO of Lacombe Foundation, Mike and Melody Stoll, met with Matt and Brenda, our CAO and Brenda, and I guess there was some confusion at that meeting, but the idea is that Lacombe Lodge needs to be replaced, and so they came in with that fast and furious and wanting to have an idea of what the city of Lacombe would like to do about that. I understand that CEO Gowdy suggested to the foundation that they should try to get that project shovel ready so that when they do start applying for grants and funds that they would have a clear proposal of how that would look. Number one question is, does the city have other land to give the foundation to build the lodge, or will the lodge be rebuilt on its existing land? I certainly didn't make any commitments about other land, but the foundation board did agree to go ahead and make the project shovel ready. So we proposed to have $100,000 put towards a preliminary design for this site and what that would look like to rebuild the whole lodge. And so then we would be looking at $50 million to cover that rebuild. So that's significant. What else did I want you to know? Oh, affordable housing, Councillor Connick. You were at that meeting last week or not?
Yes, I was, but that occurred after I submitted my report, so my report that'll.
Oh, okay. But I just wanted to, the Lacombe Foundation was gifted a house that they would like to work with the city in partnership in terms of affordable housing. This house is right by the Lacombe Legion. The desire of the donor was that the proceeds of this house would be put towards the rebuild of the lodge, but there is some discussion about working with the Affordable Housing Committee. So that's the, I just wanted to have that on the table here tonight. I think that's it. Was there anything else on there? Oh, right, Lacombe Regional Emergency Management. That's a lovely committee, you guys. We continue to work together as a region to figure out ways to amend the plan regarding delegation of authority. I am the chair of that committee, and it's a steep learning curve.
Any questions or comments for Councillor Uchter? If not, Councillor Jacobson?
I did not submit a report because I had a wonderfully uneventful last 2 weeks, with the exception of my brief participation in Mayor for a Day. And I would just like to point out to Councillor Rookster that I also heard a young lady say that we need a lot more shopping options in Lacombe, so that her family does not have to drive to Red Deer to buy things other than groceries.
I guess first off, I was invited to the Big Brothers Big Sisters AGM, where we recognized Crystal Zenz, the director there for 10 years of dedicated service. And it was an interesting evening. I had not attended one of those previous. And the Red Deer mug from Municipal Water Group, and Councillor Gullickson already went through that. And at a meeting with Hockey Canada, along with our CAO and Director Vaughn at the time, not acting CAO. And in fact, we are going to be having a pre-tournament game of the Hlinka Gretzky Cup on August 4th. And my memory fails me as to the teams. I believe it was Norway, and we'll have to get that right for next time. But anyway, it is coming. It's at an interesting time of year, but we hope that it's going to be a tremendous success, and we're working with them to do what we can to ensure that it attracts as many of our citizens as possible. The MPC meeting has already been touched on, and then a couple comments on the mayor for a day as well. That was an interesting exercise for the first one that I had chaired. Been to a couple of others previous, but it was very interesting, and there was some interesting comments from those youngsters in grade 6. And I don't know if I made it clear that the items that were discussed were not given to the previous. That was kind of off the cuff, so I think it pretty accurately represented what their thinking was, so I found that quite interesting. And that's all that I had. Actually, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention to the councillors on NPC, to remind you to get in your dates of possible training. So if we could, just as a general reminder, that would certainly be appreciated. And that's all that I had. So the report for our CAO, I don't know that we'll necessarily be able to speak to each item, but
Mayor Creasy, can I just interrupt with a point of order? If I'm recalling our bylaws correctly, we will be timing out here right away, or are we only in 2 minutes? So I'm just wondering, at this point, do we want to entertain a motion to extend, because we do have in-camera items still, I believe, is that correct? We might want to entertain a motion to do that extension.
Sounds like a wonderful idea. Do you care to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Very good. And you want that to read that we're making an exception to go past 9 p.m.?
Yes, please, if that would be the correct wording. You understand my intent, but I'm just not exactly sure, because we haven't done this before, I'm not exactly sure on the proper wordage, but yes, that is my intent.
Everybody understands the intent? If there's no comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? All right. Thank you for that.
I'm a principal person.
There you go. So I don't think I need to read each individual item on our CAO's report. Acting CAO, is there any particular items that you would like to go over? Not really?
I don't believe so. I certainly, if you had questions, I'd be happy to get the information for you and get it back to you.
By all means, just so there's no confusion, Mr. Gowdy is at conference in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, and previous to the FCM in Halifax, so that's the reason why he's not here this evening. Was there any standout items there that anyone in the council wanted more information on, or any clarity or anything? Okay. Very good. Who would like to bring forward a motion at this time? Didn't hear you, Councillor Ross.
Take motion to receive our reports and information.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Thank you. I'm going to suggest that Joseph would like some time with someone here, so we're going to take another recess, after which time we will move in the camera. Or move in camera, rather. It's 9 o'clock now. So it's 9 o'clock, we'll reconvene at 10 minutes enough? At 9:10. Thank you.
Tea again.